Back in 2023, re-released from an original 2017 tooling, the Hawker Seafury in 1:48 scale with 3 beautiful schemes. Let's take a look. Hello and welcome to Model Kit Stuff, and welcome to First Impressions video day, and today we're looking at this. So as I just said, it's a re-release of an original 2017 tooling of the Hawker Seafury in 1:48 scale. Now I've built one of these, but not this re-released one with the different schemes, and I ended up buying it again because I really enjoyed the build and I really liked this scheme and fancied having a pop at that. So here we go. Let's take a look at what we've got. This is kit number A06105A. And it's a Seafury FB.II, and this came out about halfway through 2023 and is currently an on-stock item with Airfix. It's a skill level 2, comes with 2 flying hours and has 3 paint schemes, and as always you've got a list of paints you need on the outside of the box. That's really handy if you're buying it in store somewhere and then want to get the paints to go with it. So it tells us that the length is 231mm, width is 244mm, and there's 123 pieces. And it says the Hawker Seafury was developed towards the end of the Second World War and was the last and most powerful piston engine fighter to serve with the Royal Navy. And it goes on to say some other stuff. And then we've got our 3 schemes here, which is Exercise Momentum, 1831 Royal Navy Volunteer Reserve, Royal Navy Air Station Stretton, HMS Blackcap, Cheshire, England, 1953, or Hawker Seafury, which is sort of what I'd say was the sort of the traditional scheme for that period. Then you've got a Hawker Seafury FB.11, G Fury UK 1981, which is, they've done a Spitfire in the same scheme, so you could do both of them together, which is this red with the white and blue stripe, or number 724 Squadron Royal Australian Navy Naval Air Station Nawara, is that? New South Wales, Australia, 1961 to 62, and that's the one that I fancy doing. So let's have a look inside the box, which means I need to undo the tape. I expect that what we will see is a single bag and then the clear parts bagged with inside, and then our instructions and decals separate. That's the normal way that they do it. There we go. Now the last time I built this, it was in the old plastic, so it's nice to see this in the new plastic, and I know that will make a difference to this build. So there we go. Right, let's start, as I normally do, with our instructions. So looking at our instructions, we have a standard Airfix format, stapled, full colour instruction manual. As always, gives us a little bit of history and specifications of the aircraft in multiple languages, and then as we turn over we get our key and we're straight into the first steps, which is focused on the cockpit. So we're putting pedals and the flight stick in. We've got instructions there for the different paint colours, although pretty much everything is 85, which is that satin black, I think. Nice to see in step 2 that we've got individual decals for some of the dials. Some of them are joined up, but I would recommend getting a punch and just punching them out so that you can get rid of all that extra decal film. Then in step 3, we are attaching the seat, which is all one moulded piece, to the bulkhead there. There's some nice cushion detail on there as well. Then we're adding in a bulkhead onto our floor pan there. And there's a nice little picture showing that it's got to be square, basically. Then we add the seat bulkhead. And it's showing us how that goes together underneath, so it's nice that we've got these additional pictures there. Then we're putting in internal framework, so that's going into the sides there, so we'll have one sort of internal cockpit part that will go into the fuselage. So rather than moulding these into the fuselage, they've done them separately, which hopefully means we'll get better definition on them. And we've got nice individual paint instructions there as well, so that's really good, including some of the instructions for the switches, which is a bit unusual. Usually they just say, oh, paint that all black. So step 8, and we're installing into the fuselage. You can see there's no detail on the moulded onto the fuselage, so we'll just have to check for any ejector pins there. So we're putting that in, we're painting that 85 as well, so it's all sort of black on the inside of there. So what that means is not only will it be quite dark in there and you ain't going to see much, but all the little colours that you've painted in and the dials and things will really pop out against all that darkness. And here we're painting in 74, which is a sort of like a linen type colour, which is the colour for all the internals. Step 9, and we're installing the wing spar, and again we've got a little picture there with geometry. And then in step 10 we attach the other half of the fuselage. Step 11, and we've got a little part to remove there, so that's shown quite nicely, and we're painting that again in the 74, and it gives us a sort of how it should fit. Make sure you fit it correctly to this bulkhead here, this sort of bit that goes down the middle. So all of this gets painted 74, and there's wire looms moulded into there, so and there's rivet detail and what have you, so it should look pretty nice once painted up and given a wash. Then at step 13, when we've got the underside of the fuselage, we've got some decisions to make on what we're putting in. That depends on your paint scheme, which we've not seen yet. It says A or C. So yeah, I think paint scheme B won't have any because it's a commercial aircraft effectively rather than a military one. Then step 14, we're installing the landing gear bay. We're putting in the wing guns, which are just mounted in there. I guess when the wing goes over it, you're just going to see the tips anyway. And then we've got a little radiator grill going in, and what looks like some form of air scoop or something. And then in step 15, we're attaching the fuselage to the base of the wings there. Step 16, and we're then focused on the engine. So we've got exhausts, we've got cowling ring being put together. Okay, so we don't have an engine as such, but what we do get is sort of like a front end and a back end of the cowling. So you've got an empty space in the cowling, but as you look at it, you should see the detail that you would see. So you've not got an option to see an engine with the cowling open at all. Then we're building up the tail in 22, 23, 24. 25, we have the flaps to the tail and the tail piece, which are all posable. So that's good. So if you want to model it in flight and doing a maneuver, you can do that. Then we get to step 27, and this is where we start having to be mindful of whether we're doing gear down or gear up. Now, all of these steps are geared down, but also you're going to have to be mindful of whether you want the wings to be unfolded or folded. So it's telling you here with the extended wings option, follow steps 27 to 34, and then steps 43 to 80. To build with folded wing option, miss out steps 27 to 30 and follow steps 35 to 80. Now, when I last built this, I did one wing down and one wing up, and it looked rather cool with the wing up. And I think when I come to do this, I will do wings up. Right, and then at the bottom here, so we can see we're adding the top part of the wing, then we have the bottom part of the wing and the flap, which is also possible to be positioned, and we've got some drilling to do there for mounting ordnance depending on what we want. Step 35, and this is the process if you want to have the wings folded up. What we're doing is we're putting the wing stub in with the little detail where the fold is, so you get some nice little detail on there. Then we're putting the hinge in. Then we're doing the same as we did previously on the fixed wing version, where we're drilling out holes for various different ordnance, drop tanks and bits and pieces. And again, you've got the little section of the wing there that you can see. It's telling us that we need to be painting inside that lip, which is absolutely what we need to do. And we can do all that when it's done. Actually, you don't need to do it beforehand, which is sort of a suggestion from the instructions. You don't need to, but you can. Then we're assembling it, and yeah, you can, when you have the wings folded up with the ordnance on, you're really displaying that ordnance off nicely. And I'm going to imagine we've got decals for the ordnance, so they should look really splendid. It's a nice way of showing that off. Then we've got wheels up for the tail wheel, so we're just capping that off with we've got one piece shows the two doors in a closed position, and then the same with the main wheels. We've got these little rams to be trimmed off if you're having it in the closed position. Then step 45, we're building the tail wheel, so we've got a separate wheel there. It's not molded in, so that's nice. So we've got 3 pieces there coming together, and then we're just slotting that in and adding in the doors there. Then we're building up the main landing gear. So you'll need to paint all of these and then glue them into place. Then we're adding more details around here so that we've got a nice, busy, realistic landing bay, gear bay I should say. And it's showing us doing that on the other side. Then we're adding the doors, and you can see that little thing that we put in earlier on in the build that we trimmed off for closed actually goes into one of the flaps, so that's a nice little detail. The wheels, 2 halves with the hubs moulded into 1 half on both sides. So you're not going to be able to stick that on a stick and paint it, but yeah, interesting. I think, yeah, I'm not sure there's any particular advantage to doing it that way from a modeller's point of view. Then we're adding the wheels on. Looks like we've got weighted wheels, looks like there's a flat on them, and when I'm looking at this, the shape in the hub is not circular, it's keyed, which means you're gonna absolutely perfectly get your flat in the right place, and it's showing that flat there. Step 61, this suddenly looks a lot busier. This is lots of little ordnance steps now. So 61 is pulling the spinner and propeller together and mounting it in. And then we start building up all these different ordnance depending on what you want to do. Now, when I built it last time, I put on just these rockets, and they look pretty cool. So I'll probably do something different this time. So not quite sure what they are. Smoke discharges, I don't know. Who knows? And I'm sure someone knows. If you can tell me in the comments, I'd appreciate that. And I know one or two of you will know. Then we've got drop tanks there, and we've got options on which ones we want. And then we've got rockets and various different types of bombs that we can put on. Then we've got the little pull-out foot stirrup for climbing on. So again, you can have that open and closed. So that's a nice little detail. Then we've got the little flap at the back of the radiator there, which we can put in open and closed. So that's good. Individual wing clear parts. So nice transparent part there. Great for painting. Pit-top tube, arrestor hook. Then we've got our two-piece canopy, and again, open or closed depending on how you want it. And yeah, then that should be pretty much it, I would think. Yeah, so 80 steps. So then we have our paint schemes. So we have this first one, which is really nice actually. It's what I call the sort of the usual paint scheme for this period. You see a lot of aircraft in it. The new Gannets just is in this paint scheme, for example, where you've got this beige overall colour and then this dark sea grey. But it's broken up by these lovely yellow and red, orange and red decals, which look really, really nice, don't they? So that breaks that up nicely. So it's actually quite a colourful little aircraft, that. Yeah, and we've got decals here for the ordnance, as I thought we would, and well, it says camera pod and drop tank. I hadn't spotted there was a camera pod. So yeah, we've got decals for all of those. So this is the main decals. We do have a separate stencil sheet as well, and that's our main colours there. So that being for the wingtips, matte black for the propeller blades, gunmetal, that'll be for things like the wheels. Yeah, all very good. Then we can do the G-Fury, which is pretty much all over red. They've got it down as gloss bright red, so that's the same colour I used on the German fire engine last year. So it's a really nice paint actually. Yeah. So yeah, if you like red aircraft, that's definitely the one to go for, isn't it? Looks like we have lots of decals building up that star, so that's quite interesting as well. And then finally, the one I intend to do, which is this one in midnight blue. Which is very, very nice, Australian navy. So yeah, I think that's a really nice colour, and it will look quite different to anything else I've got on the aircraft front there. So yeah, looking forward to doing that. Let's have a look at the stencil sheet next. So we've got a stencil sheet, but actually it's double-sided. So this doesn't cover off anything additional for Paint Scheme B. Paint Scheme B is all on the paint instructions. But here you've got common stencil data for Paint Scheme A. And you can see we're adding a fair amount. Nice to see that actually there's more on the upper wing surfaces than the lower wing surface. Quite often you get loads of stuff on the lower wings and then you don't see it because you've got it of how you're displaying it. Which includes some additional stuff for ordnance there. Some of these things were covered off, I think, on the paint scheme as well, I think. I'm sure I saw that. Yeah, so that's really nice. Easy to work through. You've just got to go through main markings and then do stencils after is generally how I do it. Because if it's something like a warning sign or something like that, and it's in a position that goes over a main marking, you want that to be on the top. So you always do your main markings first. And then this is for the Australian version, Paint Scheme C. So very, very similar. A lot of them will be the same, but there must be some differences for them to have done it in two different sheets. So yeah, certainly calling out different numbers, even though they're in the same position. So if we show that there, so 7 becomes 109, and 8 becomes 110, and 10 becomes 112. So there's definitely some differences, even though they look absolutely the same. Now that could just be the colour, because it's going on blue, but the markings are in a different colour. The only way to find out is to have a look at the decals. So let's do that. So yes, here we go. And what I can see is 10 is in black and these are in white. So yeah, it's a different colour. The stencils are the same, different colours. So that's great, means we'll have a load of spare stencils, always handy for a rainy day. Stencils, well, you know, decals, they're going to be great because the cartograph, which means they are really, really nice. When I'm looking at the lettering, there is decal film between the letters to give you your spacing, but the N, for example, the V, the Y, and the centre of the A, it's all cut out. So it'll be a very delicate decal, and you have to be very careful getting that off. You don't the N ripping or anything like that. But yeah, they're just lovely, perfectly in register, nicely coloured. Yeah, no issues at all with those. Very, very nice. Yeah, and I don't think I've ever done an Australian Navy aircraft before, so that'll be quite cool to do something a little bit different. So I might tackle this in 2024, because in 2024 I'm focused on doing things that are a bit different to what I've done. So yeah, nothing wrong with those. Right, let's have a look at the plastic. Right, we're starting here with frame A, and the first thing I'm going to say is, because I've built this before, I can look at this and be a little bit more critical than a genuine first impression where it's the first time I've looked at it. And my first observation is this is in the new plastic, and when I built the last one, it was in the old softer blue plastic. And I think that this harder plastic is actually providing a sharper mould. So it was a little bit soft moulded when I built it last time, but this is not showing that at all. It's actually crisper, I think, than the one that I built a little while ago, 3 years or so ago now. So yeah, we've got some nice little rivet details and bits and pieces. Nice texturing. All the rivets are raised, got to say, on all of this. The bolt heads are raised. The panel lines, yeah, they're a little bit oversized, but they're not massively out. They're really not. And it gets less noticeable when painted anyway. The engine, this goes in the front of the engine. You've got some nice, I can feel all the little ribs on the pistons there. So you've got some nice detail that'll just pop out on a wash. Yeah, nothing wrong with that. And even these that are solid, there's no sink or anything like that. There's quite a large sprue gate on this edge here, so you're going to have to trim that away back from the part and gently sand it down to maintain the correct shape. But yeah, I mean, the tip of these is so thin that you can see through them, so it should look really nice. Won't look heavy and chunky. Yeah, not bad. Bit of seam clean up, but otherwise that's it. I don't see any sink. Certainly don't see any flash. Yeah, nothing wrong with that at all. Just looking at the inside, and I think we'll avoid ejector pin marks, visible ones, when we put the cockpit in. So that's a bonus too. Right, frame A, and we've got the parts here for the wings, a bit more engine cowling, some bombs, and the nice little tail end pieces there. And unfortunately, the first thing that I'm spotting is that these two parts here are damaged. So if I hold this up, you can probably just see in the light the surface has been damaged, and we've got little gouges in it and a lot of scuffing around it. We've got some scuffing there, and then we've got some scuffing there and some scuffing there. Why is that? Well, that's because it's all in one bag, and this part here with all these ejector pins was there like that. So all of those ejector pins have been scratching away at that as it moves in the bag, because they've put that surface down. If they'd done it the other way around, it probably wouldn't have happened, and it wouldn't have mattered on the inside surface. So, you know, it's those little final attention to detail bits that makes the difference. Because, all right, you can polish that out, and probably that needs a little bit of filling out and you know, a bit of Mr. Surfacer or something to correct that. It's not a biggie, but really, you don't want to be selling a product that arrives to your customer damaged. So, you know, this is why we say individual bags, or actually my preference would be for them to design the sprues so that the sprues could be stacked in the box and you don't need a bag, and the sprues are all the same size, fit the box, stacked up with corner and centre pieces that make so that they keep an even distance. For me, that's the way to go. I've seen a couple of companies doing it now. They're usually the smaller companies, but the big boys need to catch up with these sort of ideas, because you can be environmentally friendly and you can keep your costs down, because the cost of this is nothing in the overall package of what you get, you know, with the decals and the box packaging and all of that sort of stuff. Actually, the plastic parts are quite a small part of the overall build-up of the cost. So designing the sprues so you can stack them, that's definitely the way to go. And then we can avoid all of this silliness. So I've got some scuffs, which I don't want, but I know that I can sort them. Other modelers, maybe not, perhaps wouldn't know how to go about that, and you end up settling for that's a little bit of damage or something like that. But looking at the parts themselves as they're intended to be, they are really, really nice. We've got nice details there. We've got nice panel lines. For some, they're probably a little bit too big, but for me, they're not so bad. We've got nice shaped bulges. We've got fasteners where they need fasteners. We've got raised fastener detail and recessed fastener detail, which is really lovely, emulating the real thing. So really good. And then on this underside piece here, we've got some nice louvre moulded in, which is really good. And again, we've got raised and recessed detail, all adding to that overall finish. Now, when I built this, I had a problem aligning the top part of the wing here and couldn't align this up particularly well. So that's something to look out for. It's a bit it was a bit tricky, but yeah, there's nothing wrong with these. Lovely parts, nice detail. Yeah, all good. So I'll take some photos so you can take a closer look. Right, our next is, what's the frame? It's C. And as you can see, we've got our drop tanks, or the camera tank there, which has got, I'm guessing there's a clear lens goes in that. You can see we've got our tyres here, and you know, it's a little bit annoying, I think, this. You've got whopping great sprue gates on 3 sides. not one of them is actually on the flat. The only part of the tyre you're not going to see, and therefore clean up doesn't matter as much, and they've not put a sprue gate there. That's the logical place to put a sprue gate, on the flat. What are they thinking? So you've got 3 connection points that you've got to clean up, but the flat that you'll never see, don't worry about that. That'll be perfect. You've got quite a complicated tread on this tyre, and at this scale that means a lot of careful recarving the tread once you've taken the sprue gate off, or sanding the tread down a little bit to give it a more worn look and blending it in, depending on your skill set and how you want to present your model. But yeah, I mean, the detail on it is nice. It's just the thought process is bonkers. We do have one sprue gate, which I'm going to guess has accidentally, haphazardly landed on a flat. Yeah, so yeah, 1 out of 10 for thought process there, I think. But yeah, you can see how this is keyed so that the wheels will automatically sit on the flat. That's great. And then we've got some flaps here, the landing gear covers, and you're getting an impression of how big this is. This is 148, and it's huge. If you put it next to, I don't know, a Hurricane, it's huge compared to a Hurricane. Then we've got the landing gear, and I definitely think the harder plastic is making the moulding feel crisper, because this definitely looks and feels better than when I did it. We've got a broken part in there, again, all the sprues together. If we flip it over, we've got a couple of ejector pins that we're going to have to sort out. Some in really unfortunate places. It would have been better for that one to have been there, but I guess they've put them there. Yeah, so they'll be a little bit tricky given their location. We've got ejector pin marks on here as well, but they're raised, so they can be chiselled off easy enough. Then we've got our dials, and our wheels that we've seen, and this is the inside of the gear bay, and we've got all this nice pipe work, and I can see in the light, probably not being picked up on the camera, we've got some really nice fastener detail along all of these ribs. But we've also got some ejector pins, and some are raised, or some of them are part raised and part sunk, so a whole collection. I think the small ones on the end we can chisel out. We can probably chisel out that, and most of that with a bit of sanding, and those two are depressed and will need filling. And then the same with the cockpit floor. We've got 2 ejector pins. They could be very gently sanded out, I think. Yeah. So yeah, looks a bit scrappy, that moulding, actually. Not sure why. But round your dials and controls, that's all nice and sharp. I'm sure it'll be fine when it's painted up. It may be that no, the seat's going to be there, so they are going to be visible, so you're going to have to take the ejector pins out. Anyway, there you go, let's take some pictures. Well, the next sprue is much smaller. This is sprue D, or frame D as they call it. And we've got, again, quite a bit of ordnance on here. But we've also got the internal bulkhead, we've got the seat, we've got parts for the landing gear, parts for the cockpit, all sorts of little bits and pieces. This is for going inside the tailwheel bay. So yeah, so if we start with these rockets, they're in halves, so you're going to have to glue them together, but they're in halves mounted, so you take that half and put it on this half, which has got the wing mount all moulded in, and then you've got a bit of seam cleanup to do. But yeah, I can see that we've got a little bit of bowing there, so you might want to cut those little bits out and replace them with a bit of metal wire to get them a bit straighter. They seem to be being pulled about a bit by the sprue gate a little bit. And these, yeah, they're okay. They're possibly a little bit soft moulded, these. I think this is where we're seeing a little bit of soft moulding shining through. But under paint, I think they'll look tight enough. Got this nice little frame here for all these multiple, whatever they are, candlesticks of some type. Then we've got nice detail around the, I think it's probably a bit basic, but we've got all the holes there and there's a little bit of fastener detail. I'm sure there should be more to it than that. However, painted up and given a wash with the seat mounted on and inside the cockpit, how much of it you'll see, I'm not sure. The control stick is nicely detailed. It's going to take some careful cleanup, and the cushion on the seat is nicely done. No harnesses, and there's a seat adjuster that's moulded in that's a bit clunky, but it's not too bad. We've got some seam on the side that'll need cleaning up. That's the problem with doing a single moulded seat. Tail wheel, that's okay, bit of seam, but other than that, nothing to fuss about. The detail on these parts which go in the cockpit, they're not as sharp as you'd like them to be, but you can go in with a tip of a knife and just put a bit of definition in these little cable runs there, and once painted up and given a wash to separate them, they'll look fine. Yeah, absolutely. Nothing particularly wrong with these. Quite a nice set of parts, actually. Frame E, our final grey parts, and we've got the propeller and its spinner, and we've got the bits that go on the folded wings, and we've got our guns there, the hinges, arrestor hook, pit-up tube, that's the mount for the spinner, that little internal air intake, and some more bombs. So the bombs have got little spinners mounted on the front, which are quite nicely done. We've got some nice detail on the wing halves, probably less fastener detail than there would be, but the stuff that you're really going to see, the wires and bits and pieces, are all there. Pit-up tube, you're going to have to be careful taking that off, but they have got the sprue gate on the thicker part before it steps down to the thinner part. It's the same with the arrestor hook, careful removal of that, and that needs to be striped and when it's painted. Then we've got, that's our closed foot stirrup, and then that's our open foot stirrup. So again, being careful removing those, although this harder plastic makes the parts a little bit more robust than they used to be. Spinner, nicely done there, no issues with that. The sprue gates are on the surface because this is, well, it's 6 years old as I record this in terms of release as a new tool. So you're what, 8-9 years ago from when this was actually designed. So we're looking at Airfix a fair while back now. So they wouldn't do this now. They do it differently now. And You know, they don't always do this differently though, unfortunately. They have the sprue gates on the propeller blades. Now for me, they could have done the hub and then done blades separately with the connection points on the bottom, nice little row of blades, and you put them on individually. For me, that would have been a better solution. You know, even if it put the price up by 50p, who cares? You know, a little bit of seam removal, but it looks very nice. Careful cleanup of the root there, because unfortunately you've got a little bit of pinching of the plastic where the sprue gate is, so you might have to do a little bit of filling on that. Otherwise, really nice. No slide moulding at this point with Airfix, but we've got nice open ends to the exhaust bits. We've got nice texturing on the radiator, and I can assure you, when you give this a wash, it really pops out really nice. Okay. And finally, our clear parts, and we've got our main canopy part, the front windshield, we've got the lens for the camera pod that's slung underneath, and then our wing lights there. And they're lovely and beautifully clear. I've got no spidering or anything like that. Distortion, yes, we've got a little bit on here, but you'd expect that given the shape. But it's actually not too bad. And when you've got something inside there, it's not going to give you a problem at all. Front windscreen, distortion from there is ever so slight on the edges, as you'd expect, but otherwise it's good. So more than sufficient for what you need on your model. The wing tips, the connection point is a point that you sand up to marry into your wing anyway, so that's good. And it's the same on the front windscreen there. So yeah, all good. And then we've got this nice clear lens that goes in for your camera pod. Nothing wrong with that. Lovely parts. Yeah. Nice definition between the glass and the frame, so easy to mask. Yeah, really good. So there you have it, the 1:48 scale Hawker Seafury FB.II from Airfix. What's my first impression? It's not really a first impression because I built one, but what is it? What I would say is this is not to Airfix's current new release standard. However, there is nothing wrong with this. It's quite a fun little build. It lacks a little bit of detail in places, and you know, as you look at all of this rivet detail, it's a very personal thing. Rivet detail. They don't show majority of this on the aircraft, and a lot of people will argue that at 1:48 scale, you really wouldn't see it. So don't put it on. Other modelers would argue that it makes it more interesting, and even though it might be slightly out of scale, it gives you a better impression of the aircraft, and they would like that detail to be on. It's a personal thing. And then you're going to have people who want it to be recessed because they don't want raised rivets because they're a nightmare for decals and they're a nightmare for sanding, and you'll have others that want them to be raised because it's more realistic, even though they're likely to be oversized. So it's down to individual view, and as a manufacturer of models, Airfix have to try and come up with what works best, because they can't possibly please everybody. And when you look at this kit and it's not got the rivets on, you might take the view that it looks a bit simplified, but once you get all the decals on and all the stencils on, and you put a bit of weathering on, and you've got the exhaust staining and what have you, and you've given it a panel line wash and all that sort of stuff, you won't be thinking about rivets because your eye is drawn to all the nice detail you've put on there, which is what you want. So for me, I have no problem with the detail level in this kit. You don't see much inside there anyway. Once that's built up, you can see the dials and one or two other bits and pieces pop out when you paint them up, but it's all black in there. So it's a very dark cockpit that you've got. So yeah, I don't have any issues. So let's just go through this from a point of view of what we want as modelers. So instructions, good clear instructions that will take you from having a kit of parts to a full build precisely and not give you any issues. Big tick. Decals, excellent quality decals, and we've got all the stencils as well, so they've not shied off from giving us the decals, even though they're typically the most expensive part of a kit. So yeah, really good decals, covers everything that you need. If you're not up for putting all the stencils on, you just don't put them on, but they're there if you do want to put them on, so that covers everyone's bases. Big tick. Plastic parts, they're in the new plastic, so that's another tick. I think they look crisper in the new plastic. They don't look quite as soft moulded as they did when I last built it. I don't think that's my imagination. I think that is how it is. There is nice detail where you want to see it. And yeah, it might lack a little bit of detail in places, but on the whole, you know, as you look at this, you can see that you don't see much. And when you've got the wings folded, they have put detail in there. So for me, I don't have a problem for it. If you want to super detail it, you've got an opportunity to. And, you know, I think for a level 2 at this price point, I think it's fine. So that's personal preference, but the actual plastic itself, no flash, no sink, everything is crisply moulded other than where you've got some soft moulding in one or two places, but we've not got issues with the moulding particularly. Largely no issues with ejector pins, and where you do have them, they're in the cockpit where they're hard to see, but obviously you will want to sort them. So a tick on the plastic for me. What they've provided is great. In terms of how they've gone about that and the execution of producing it. So, yeah. Would it be nice to have paint masks? Yes. Would it be nice to have photo etch? Yes. My only criticism, and it's a criticism that I always put at Airfix, is lack of harnesses. If you're not going to put a pilot in, you need to give us a solution for the harnesses. Whether that be a bit of photo etch or a decal or whatever it's going to be, you need to give us a solution, or give us a pilot so we can put a pilot in. You know, you can't take the pilot and not give us something to replace the pilot, because, you know, it's part of the aircraft that the harnesses are on the seat. They don't come out. So yeah, for me, that's the only thing missing. So is it a 10 out of 10? No, absolutely not. Is it the best model Airfix have ever produced? No, absolutely not. But what I can tell you is it's an awful lot of fun to build. It's not a very time-consuming build. It goes together really nicely, and with a bit of thought and consideration, you can really bring some of the details out to life. I think we've got some nice paint schemes there. And ultimately, when I built it, it was a lot of fun. And after all, that's what we do this hobby for, isn't it? Fun. So in that case, yeah, it's a really nice kit, and I can certainly recommend it because I really enjoyed building mine. And I'm looking forward to building it again. Not very often that I buy a kit and then buy another one, so that must say something. So there you have it. That's my my thoughts on it. It's a nice little kit. It's not going to blow anyone's socks off, but it looks really good on your display when you're finished with it. So yeah, definitely worth a dabble. It's a couple of weekends worth of work. Really nice model. Hope that was useful. Thank you very much for looking in. You enjoy your modelling, and I will see you very soon. Bye for now.